Inspired talks of Swami Vivekananda. Om Namah Sri Rajaya Vivekananda Suraye Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. It was July 23rd, 1895. We are practically in the middle of the Inspired talks. Uh, Not really middle. We are on the other side of the middle, on the better side of the middle. I think today is 70th talk. So nearly two third has been covered. Swamiji has been discussing yoga. Those of you who are really interested can listen to our Raj Yoga talks. And as far as the information part of yoga is concerned, you'll find everything there. Swamiji, when Swamiji talks, he gives us new insights. After all, Raj Yoga is a product of such great minds only. Patanjali, Patanjali only organized it. This is something that those of you who have been listening to our talks would have realized by now that in Hindu religion, in general, we don't take any of our scriptures as inviolable. This is a very, very important thing that we need to understand. Nothing is inviolable. In some of the religions, they claim that their religion is a revelation by God. So that becomes inviolable. If you look at the history of Hindu religion, you will find that there have been philosophies, free thinkers, and commentators who have taken the Vedas as the benchmark because they consider that these are apaurushaya. We will be discussing it today also. Apaurushaya. Why? Because the Ved contain knowledge about truth which cannot be reached by ordinary reasoning or ordinary sense perception. Now, this is a very important thing which you need to remember. So, although the Ved are considered to be apaurushaya, impersonal, given by God, but they are not really like command of God. Very often people make this mistake when people, particularly nowadays, it has become extremely fashionable in India to criticize Manu. They don't realize that Manusmriti, Manusmriti is not inviolable. It's not like, say, some of the scriptures of other religion where it is binding. If it is binding, then you can say, we are not going to listen to it. Manu will never force anyone to listen to him. He just says, he just codifies the practices and say that these are the universal rules, these are the secondary rules. And for this age, the secondary rules are like this. In next age, the secondary rules will change. Nothing is inviolable in India, excepting for the fact that God is the truth. Scriptures describe the nature of God, but God being infinite, they will never say that it is only this much. Secondly, the way to reaching God will differ from person to person because minds are different. If somehow this idea becomes clear to you, it will become extremely simple, extremely easy for you to understand what Hindu religion is about. When it comes to yoga philosophy, which Swamiji has been explaining to his disciples, yoga practices were going on since we don't know when. And the whole thing had been perfected. Particularly, Bhagwan Buddha had practiced these and he had mastered yoga and had become an avatar for his followers. So Patanjali collected all of this. To give you an example, this is a very funny example, very interesting example. Many of you might have heard of Kam Sutra. And nowadays, many people have started talking about India is the land of Kam Sutra. What nonsense. Kam is a very extremely lower in the order. Anyway, Kam Sutra was codified by the Vatsyayan. And Vatsyayan himself was a sage. Not only sage, he had not married. And Vatsyayan writes so much because he studied the things. And uh, he talked to people because he felt that calm is one of the goals of life according to the Ved. So he wanted to codify. So he studied things, he talked to people, and he went to those quarters where people visited and came up with Kam Sutra of Vatsyayan. Same with Chanakya's Arth Shastra. He had thoroughly studied all such code books for the kings. And then he came up with his own ideas. So, people in general, they do not have this basic understanding that whatever is given in Hinduism is easily transcendable. You can transcend it. If you can come up with something better, perfectly all right. Now, if you say that you don't want to believe in a God and yet you want to be a Hindu, yes, that's also possible. Because Hindu religion wants you to enjoy freedom. Enjoy freedom in such a way that you can reach the highest of spiritual attainments. It's not about freedom of the senses. That is, you're running wild in this world. No, no, no. They say that have freedom of that kind that will make you grow more powerful and will make you more free. Because if you give license to your senses, you get stuck up here, you get stuck up there, and you don't really grow. So these are very simple things. Like Hindu religion is so rational. And yet, the, everything in Hindu religion that we have has the clear backing of perception, clear perception. People have seen it, people have realized it. So these are not thought out systems. This is something extremely important about Hindu religion. Nothing in Hindu religion is thought out. So Swamiji has been talking about Patanjali's yoga and has been explaining in his own way. And as we began with, Swamiji is one of the sages who must have contributed in earlier ages in the corpus of yoga. That's how we believe things. Swamiji is now explaining, not from what he had contributed earlier, but in an entirely different setup, in different context. So maybe the truths are same, but presentation is entirely different. Those of you who might have listened to our talks on the Raj Yoga, and these being extremely authentic talks, I'll advise you to listen if you have time. Patanjali has been talking about yoga, and he leads us step by step forward. And then he says that there are obstructions in yoga. And the most powerful obstruction is vyadhi, sickness. Sickness is the greatest obstacle in the path of yoga, in the path of spirituality. Then, of course, there are body tremors, which are not really a sickness, but it is caused by some psychological disorder. And then there is third, psychological disorder. Psychological disorder will generally follow you if you are into yoga and particularly with an ordinary guru. Now the question is, how do we understand who is the right guru and who is wrong guru? Don't you worry. We now have books. Here is Swami Vivekananda's book. Just see what Swamiji is telling and you will know. And if you have not, try to find out what yoga is about, what spirituality is about. That means you don't deserve it. If you are truly into it, God will provide you with the right guru. God will provide you with the right guide. Believe me. Believe me. If your time comes, you will get. Just keep struggling. Show it to God that you really want it. Because God doesn't care if you don't want it. The number of mails and messages that we get, people from people who have been hallucinating, who have been seeing things, I feel sad. How I wish somebody had told them that these are all wrong. Today I got a message from somebody and he had been practicing some yoga and he found that Swami Vivekananda came in his dreams and asked him to get billions of dollars to Belur Math, our headquarters. Now he says, could you please suggest me how to earn $1 billion? What do I say? He believes in it. In all probability, he's not pulling my leg. He believes in it. There is some kind of psychological disturbance because Belur Math doesn't require billions of dollars because we don't know what to do with that. We do just as much as we can do, not beyond that. And we know our limitations. We also know our strength. So this kind of derangement comes, Swamiji. We are talking about body, sickness, and the curative power of the mind. This curative power can be applied in our common man's life too, and we do apply. The body has in itself a certain power of curing itself, and many things can rouse this curative power into action. Mind has curative power, it applies it to the body, and earlier it was not really so well known and so well documented as we now have because of advancement in medical sciences and in the computers. Which means those of you who are into studying about all this might know that if you do physical exercises, even mentally, your muscles will grow. But you will have to do exactly the way it is done physically. And you will have to feel everything exactly the way you feel physically. Similarly, now uh, thought transmissions are getting recorded, and we know that yes, these things happen. Now there are many doctors in the West. Why West? Because India still believes in the Western doctors. Although in India we have great doctors, and some of these Indian doctors are among the very best in the world. However, because of whatever reason, India has this tendency to worship the West for whatever reason. So if the doctors from America and Europe say something, we believe that to be true. Because after all, a prophet is not worshipped in his own land. No prophet can be worshipped in his own land. And Swami Vivekananda knew it very well. That's why he went to the America to make sure that he is worshipped back in India. I would have listened to him. Very difficult. We have this slave mentality, and we still consider people from the West to be our masters somewhere subconsciously. So anything coming from there must be superior. In the same way, people consider things from India as being spiritual, religious. Anything coming from India is religious. So he says this curative power can come into action such as mental conditions or medicine or exercise, etc. And then he says, which is very, very, very important for those of you who are interested in this kind of life, as long as we are disturbed by physical conditions, so long we need the help of physical agencies. Not until we have got rid of bondage to the nerves can we disregard them. Do you fall sick? Do you have a tendency to have ailments? Well, in that case, you need physical help. You cannot say that I am a yogi and I don't need it. If you are into the yoga, if you are into these spiritual practices, the body will try to cure itself, mind will try to cure itself. Beyond a point, it can't. If you have come out of your body consciousness, the way Sri Ramakrishna had come, the way Swamiji had come out of it, or the way hundreds of others, like we know of Ramana Maharshi, or if you go back, Jesus Christ, in that case, what happens? They don't care. They just don't care. My favorite example is something I had seen myself. One of our senior monks, Swami Shikshananji Maharaj, those of you who are from South India might know of him. He was in Uti for some time, maybe 10 years or so. And he had developed cancer in his last days and he was suffering a lot. So, towards the end, he refused to go for treatment. And then the monk looking after his residential area, we have one area where senior monks stay, said, but Maharaj, Swamiji, you will suffer. He became very angry. What? How can I suffer? I am Brahman. I have no suffering. See, if you're truly into spirituality, these kind of statements will shake you up. Persons like Sri Ramakrishna, they don't care about their body after a point. It doesn't matter. It's like it's like some bag in which you brought grocery or something. You had gone to the market and you can keep the bag, you can throw it away, you can discard it. People who think that it might be needed, they keep it safely. Those who don't think on those lines, they just throw them, discard it away. So these greats, these spiritual greats, they feel that whatever this body had to give has been done, and that does not matter. Recently, somebody asked me, if Sri Ramakrishna was so great, how could he cure his cancer? Would he care for his cancer? This is what happens when people are so stupid. Because you don't understand even an iota of spirituality. But worldly that we are, we always try to think on those lines. How much money Sri Ramakrishna made? That will make him a great saint or not. Whether or not he can cure diseases, whether or not he can do this, whether or not he can do that. See, these are the yardsticks applied by the worldly. But those who are truly spiritual, they don't care. Swami Vivekananda was guest of E.T. Study, and E.T. Study was extremely fascinated by Indian spirituality. And And later Swamiji had some illness here and there. And there were other things. Most importantly, Study's wife did not like Swami Vivekananda. So Study made lots of complaints. He wrote extremely badly to Swamiji. And one of the allegations was, you are a yogi, how could you cure yourself? He couldn't because he didn't want to. He was not interested. So not until we have got rid of bondage to the nerves can we disregard them. If if you are ill, if you are developing psychological issues like seeing gods and goddesses too much in your waking state, it's time to take medical help. Nothing wrong with it. It can happen. It can always happen. We had one monk a long ago. I heard this story from a very senior monk. So the story must be very old. So this old monk, he lost some of his marbles and he had to be taken to a psychiatrist. Must have been long, long ago. So he used to lament that Sri Ramakrishna has said, go mad, go mad in the love of God. I went mad in the love of God. And see, now you people have brought me to an asylum. So actually we look at such incidents with fun. He got cured later, but said Sri Ramakrishna used to say, go mad. If you have to be mad, if you have to be crazy in the love of God. He said, I went crazy in the love of God and see, I've been brought to a lunatic asylum. So if you find that there are symptoms, you better get treated. Similarly, if you have physical ailments, I remember once two senior monks were discussing. So one of them was more senior, another one was a little less senior, and both of them were scholars. I was a novice, new brahmachari, and the slightly junior asked that Swamiji, should we practice yoga, that is asana, pranayam, etc., because it is said that your mind goes towards body if you practice all this. So the senior laughed and said, if you catch fever, if you catch cold, do you take medicine or not? I said, yes. So he said, if a little bit of asana and pranayam can keep you healthy, anytime it is better, you better take it. Nothing wrong with it. Till you have attained some level of perfection, it's always good and necessary that you take care of your body and mind. And from there now, Swamiji is moving to mind. There is the unconscious mind, but it is below consciousness, which is just one part of the human organism. Philosophy is guesswork about the mind. Religion is based upon sense contact, upon seeing. The only basis of knowledge, what comes in contact with the superconscious mind, is fact. And aptas are those who have sense religion. Now, this is something which we have discussed earlier also in a different format. And here, Freud had not yet become popular, although Freud was already in the business. But this idea that there is a conscious brain, conscious mind, which is taking us through our daily course. And there's something unseen. There's something unseen that is pushing us forward. In yoga, this is known as karmashaya, the repository of all karma. But when Freud stumbled upon the idea, he came up with his new terms like id, ego, superego, and all those things. And even William James and all continued with those ideas. It's so confusing, and they talk about subconscious and conscious and all that. It's a very simple thing. There are only two things. One, the consciousness with which we work, and there is the unconscious, the unknown, which is behind it, supplying things as and when needed. If you are interested in these things, you can listen to our Raj Yoga talks. There are these things we have discussed in detail. Here, it's not needed. We just need to know that the unconscious, about which we are not conscious, about which sometimes we become conscious during our dreams, and sometimes in our thinking, we go back to our memories. Actually, this unconscious, that is our past, kind of shapes our present. Don't you worry much about present. Worry about future. You might have heard statements like past is gone, future is unseen, focus on present. No. The larger picture has to be fixed based on future. This is what I want. The only thing we want as a Hindu or as someone who is devoted to Hindu philosophies, mukti, freedom. Freedom at all levels. Freedom from physical desires, freedom from emotional desires, and freedom from different kinds of births, and ultimate freedom, freedom from this cycle of birth and death. We want freedom. And you really cannot cure your past. There's no way you can go to the past and change it. The idea of time travel and all, they may be good science fiction, but as far as our own life of spirituality is concerned, you can do nothing about there. What you can do is you can shape your present to move forward and focus on your goal. That this is what I want. Now, we don't know how the unconscious works. We don't really know how the mind works. As I mentioned, if you listen to our Raj Yoga talk, we have this second or third talk about mind, an overview of mind. We don't know what is mind, but we know about the working of mind. We can't see air. We know air indirectly by its working. Mind is just like that. And how can something know itself? There is no way. There cannot be action by something on itself. Sanskrit expression is swakriya bhav. Action on itself is not possible. I cannot hold my right hand with my right hand. It's just not possible. Mind acts on some object to know it. Mind cannot act on itself to know itself. It's just not possible. So there is no way you can know. But you can know philosophy. Sorry, if you can know mind. If you get out of this rigmarole of philosophy and go higher, go deeper, become more subtle, look back at look back at mind, and all the mysteries will become clear. So Swamiji now says philosophy is guesswork about the mind. Just just to say a few words. Philosophy as we understand today was popularized by the Greek philosophers, although philosophy existed much before that, because whenever there is a civilization, there will be philosophy. And if the civilization dies and if it doesn't leave some written record, it gets lost. However, its influence doesn't get lost. Anyway, Greek philosophy is the product of many ancient civilizations. And because they were very good at keeping records, we know about them. When there's some ancient Greek philosophers, they have contributed massively, but the whole thing became extremely popular after Plato. And both Plato and Aristotle, and Plato, to be very careful, passed off everything in the name of Socrates. Or not everything, but a lot of. It's all of guesswork. It's just guesswork. Now, when we say guesswork, it is not guesswork the way we normally understand. You catch hold of something and build a theory around it. You look at something, take it as an axiomatic truth, and then build a theory around it. Now, this is not right. Best example in our own times, best example is Bertrand Russell's. Bertrand Russell was a great mathematical philosopher, and he wanted to settle this once and for all, the problem of philosophy. And he said that nothing like mathematics, and he wanted to prove everything through mathematics. And he became extremely famous. His philosophy became extremely famous. And during his time came Gödel. Gödel, he was a mathematician. And he proved mathematically how, while staying within a system, you cannot prove that it is consistent. This is a very, very Gödel's second theorem. It's very important. And that showed that if you are confined within a system, you cannot claim that this is perfect. No Hindu can say that logically that Hinduism is perfect. And this applies to every religion. Gödel has shown it mathematically. And that was the collapse of Bertrand Russell. So basically, what was he doing? He had taken certain axiomatic truth. There are certain things which he had taken for granted for truth. And he built his philosophy around it. Ultimately, it is guesswork. And you will be surprised to know the amount of guesswork that goes in science. It's phenomenal, stupendous. Compared to philosophy, religion is based on what you see, what somebody has seen directly. In your pure mind, in your concentrated mind, in your unselfish mind, you come across the truths of existence and you have seen it. There's no guesswork. Logic is not applied there, but you don't need to apply logic. You have seen it. You will see how all these political philosophies and economic theory by Malthus and all, they all, I mean, not that everything they were saying was wrong, there was good into it. However, people being people, when somebody becomes popular, everyone thinks that that's the absolutely correct theory. If you have some sanity, you will realize that. First thing you ask, have you seen it? Have you really seen it? What is the proof that you are correct? Now you say that I'll prove it logically. You are taking help of logic to prove something, to say that this is logical. This doesn't happen. To know something, first you have to go to a higher level. Those of you who were pretty poor in mathematics when you were in class 5, class 6, etc., you know that without revisiting those classes, if you look at those textbooks and you will be surprised, you will be horrified to see how you couldn't get marks for such simple things because you have outgrown. Religion is about outgrowing this guesswork. When I am talking to you, Actually, it is all guesswork because I'm not an enlightened person. However, I'm explaining the words of Swami Vivekananda, which are the words that are pretty clear. I'm just presenting it according to my understanding and making sure that I don't stray too much. In India, those of you might have seen, seen actually or seen in movies. In Christian traditions, there is a tradition where some Christian father he preaches from the podium. He takes up some sentence and he prepares some talk and delivers. So there's a story about one Christian father. His talks were so bad that he was threatened that if he doesn't improve, he will be removed from the job. He was very upset. He wouldn't know where to go if he didn't have that job. So next time he came for the talk, he raised his fingers like this, two fingers like this, the victory sign, and delivered a marvelous, marvelous speech, and ended with another victory sign. So people came running. Oh my God, Father, what a wonderful speech it was! But we couldn't understand why you raised your two fingers. So he told that he copied that speech from someone else's, and those were quotation marks. Quotation marks. Quote. So, but in India, we don't have this tradition. You are not supposed to give speeches. You have to keep yourself confined, strictly confined to this scripture that you pick up and you become just an explainer, not even a commentator. Just explain things as you have understood. Because even if you go slightly this side, that side, ultimately you will have to come back to the truth. So there's a fundamental difference in the approach, Indian and the Western. What happens in a religion is you go and see directly what is the proof of religion. The proof of religion is that the proof is that, oh, Swamiji explains that later we will see that these greats they saw, you too can see. This is the proof. Philosophy can be contradicted. No religion has yet been contradicted. No religion has yet been contradicted for the simple reason that they're based on facts. You may question the mythologies, you may question the practices, but truth cannot be questioned. And that's why they are growing. And yet, religions like Dine Ilahi, or in Bengal we had Brahmo Samaj, they collapsed. They were not founded on truth. Aptas are those who have sensed religion. Apta arrived at the truth. They have seen the truth, but they don't see it with their eyes. So it's super conscious understanding. So the term is sensed. When your mind becomes extremely pure, refined, the truth about religion dawns upon you. The proof is that if you follow their method, you too will see. And Swamiji explains, giving the example from science. Each science requires its own particular method and instruments. An astronomer cannot show you the rings of Saturn by the aid of all the pots and pans in the kitchen. He needs a telescope. It's obvious. You need a telescope. You want to learn about astronomy, you need a telescope. So, to see the great facts of religion, the methods of those who have already seen must be followed. This is religion. Most of the things that you see in religion, actually, their goal is to make a person spiritual. To make a person spiritual, you need certain fundamental values certain moral practices. So religion prescribes that if you want to be spiritual, then you need to do all this. Now, when this society, for whatever reason, moves away from religion, or there are people who do not want to follow religion, they find it cumbersome. For example, take the case of Varnashram Dharma in India, in Hinduism, much discussed, much abused caste system of India. Of all the persons, Shankaracharya, Acharya Shankar, he very clearly says that Varnashram Dharma is meant only for people who want to rise spiritually, who want to practice the four ends in life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Those who do not want, for them Varnashram Dharma is not applicable. But the problem is that here is a society, here is a nation. Now, I cannot say that some people will practice it and some others not, because the whole society will go into turmoil. So, being a very old society, India, these things were made common to all. But Varnashram is a completely social system. It has nothing to do with religion. If you practice that, you may grow spiritually. That way it is related. But if your goal is not spirituality, then this is meaningless for you. Someone asked me, in Hindu religion, we have this concept of Kanyadan, where father gives away his daughter. And nowadays, some feminists, they are shouting against it. Why shout? Kanyadan belongs to one of the sanskaras, 16 sanskara, purificatory rites. And in one of those purificatory rites, which is Vivaha, it's a small part. And sanskaras are practiced only by those people who want to be spiritual in a particular way. You say that you don't want to believe it. You don't believe it. No one is forcing you. This is not a legal requirement. People don't have basic understanding. And everything goes back to Manu, and Manu will be abused for it. Why should Manu be abused for it? Sri Ramakrishna said that the goal of human life is God realization. Tomorrow the society goes all out for it and starts blaming Sri Ramakrishna for it. That's not done. God realization is not made for everyone because everyone cannot do that. But this is the problem with religion. When religion becomes powerful, to protect itself, it imposes its value on the society. And then the trouble begins because not everybody is ready for it. Most things that are criticized in Hindu religion today, the criticism is entirely because people fail to understand that these things are mere aids to spirituality. These are not essentials of spirituality. Unlike some religion in which those codes are essential to their religious practices. In Hinduism, it doesn't happen that way. The society says, we change it, no problem. They will just tell you, don't let go of the ultimate goal, which is freedom at the highest level. If you say, I'll let go of that too, what can we say? We passed on to you the treasures of accumulated over thousands of years, and you want to let it go. Fine, go. Sometimes, some black sheep is born in a family, and he comes and just wastes away the entire wealth. Do you know the glory that Nizams had? The last Nizam, he just ruined everything. It's gone. So if you want to be one of those spiritual black sheep, do it. What can we do? And if everyone becomes like that, everyone, the entire society goes that way, then just like reinventing the wheel, religion will have to be reinvented. So, just a second. The greater the science, the more varied the means of studying it. This is a very important thing. If the science is varied, extremely varied, then what happens? The method to study science will become extremely varied. Obviously, during the time of Aristotle, science was in embryo state. Studying science was not difficult. Today, can anyone claim to know the whole of science? Impossible, just impossible. Hinduism is the science of religion, is the encyclopedia of religion. So naturally, you need to know a lot. You need to practice a lot to know the whole of it. Before we came into the world, God provided the means to get out. So all we have to do is to find the means. So those of you who are familiar with Greek mythology, you might remember the story of Ariadne, and he had to kind of get out of the prison, and he was given ball of thread. So catching hold of the thread, he could come out of the maze. God has left us. God has left us in this world. We're lost in this maze, no doubt. But God has also given us the thread, holding on to which we can come out of it. And that is spirituality. What is this world if not a great maze? It's not like a forest, it's just like a maze. You keep on searching for a way out. And your search for the way out, you meet with new things, new experiences, but you cannot get out. If you hold on to one ideal, one simple ideal, spirituality, I need to get out by holding on to this thread. Hold on, come out. How many threads are many threads? Just hold on to any. But do not fight over methods. Now, here comes. In Hinduism, also, we had this problem, like in Bengal, also, we had this problem of uh, Vaishnavas and Shaktas. And in South India, in many areas of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and all, still that power struggle related to being a Vishnu devotee and being a Shiva devotee is going on still. It even touches the political life and social life and all those things. So do not fight over methods. These are methods. Ultimately, what does a Shaivite want? Freedom. What does a Vaishnava want? Freedom. What's the problem? Definition definition of your freedom, that is limiting definition of freedom may differ, but the general definition of freedom doesn't change. So why do you fight? Look only for realization and choose the best method you can find to suit you. In India, you see, life is too short for all this. So, generally, it was believed that one particular family will have folks in that family suited to certain mindset. Call it genetic pool, call it karma. It was believed. So, every family maintains certain traditions. It was expected that people belonging to that family can practice that particular method and become free. However, there would be someone from that family who would not be suited for that. So he was always free to go and choose a different method. And a very good example was the girls. The girls grew up in a family tradition, and when she was married off to someone, she was in a different family tradition sometimes. By family traditions, we always mean part two spirituality. Now, India for thousands of years was leading the life in a way that everyone becomes spiritual. Now things are changing. What is the ideal? No one knows. What exactly you want? No one knows. We are running like mad. But going where? Nowhere. And so, these talks related to power of positive thinking and life building, they're becoming so popular. Sprinkle those talks with little bit of religion. And if you can add Vedanta and Advaita, oh my God, you are a massive hit. But does it help? No, it doesn't. Because if you do not follow family traditions, it's like now reinventing the wheel. Now you have to reinvent the wheel. So you will have to struggle extremely hard. It's not that easy. Whatever the path, you simply cannot say that I am taking of this path and going. No, it's not that easy. So what Swami says that what suits you best, and we had worked out this beautiful method. We have family traditions. In case you feel that you're not suited, you go find some guru. Now, if everyone is going to find a guru, nothing is going to work out then. Eat the mangoes and let the rest quarrel over the basket. People will always quarrel because it is in their nature to quarrel. If people can quarrel over religion, and if people can fight and shed bloods in the name of religion, you can imagine how quarrelsome we are, how vicious we are. These are the people who are fighting over the basket. But now you know the truth. Why do you want to fight for the basket? Go for the mangoes. People are fighting for the basket. You can easily pick up a mango. Like I keep telling, because of the internet, it has become so easy to be successful today because internet is the information super highway. You want any information you will get. And we are literally swamped, not flooded, swamped by this information. And kids, immature they are, whole day they are poring over their phone. Creativity is lost, strength is lost, power is lost, unless something new develops. I mean, it's too early to comment anything. People who are truly creative, people who have some stuff inside them can easily become, because the competition has become meager. Earlier, people had no outlet and everyone wanted to do something. Today, also, everyone wants to do everything. Just that talent is gone. Just talent is gone. Those of you who have some idea about literature in your mother tongue would know that the kind of poets we had, say, 100 till 100 years ago, those poets are missing. Philosophers that we had, they are missing. Even in science, things are becoming bad because most people going into science are there just to earn money. Because to achieve something, you need to sacrifice a lot. Tapasya. Tapasya means sacrifice, and success means tapasya. There might be one or two exceptions who might be carrying it forward from the previous life, but rest of us have to slog. Do you perform tapasya? No. Success will not be yours. The kind of books and the kind of jokes, even the jokes, they are so ordinary, so third grade. Why? Stuff is missing. People are fighting over the basket. You go all out for the mangoes. Eat, enjoy, nourish yourself. See Christ, then you will be a Christian. All else is talk. The less talking, the better. See, if you tell some Christian father who is preaching, have you seen Jesus? No, then why are you preaching Christianity? Why are you preaching Christianity? The message makes the messenger. The Lord makes the temple, not vice versa. The worth of a messenger and being a messenger itself depends on the message. We have temples and we have churches. The message that they are conveying make them important. The places by themselves are not important. What's the message? Well, you have to say, I have seen God. You too can see, as Sri Ramakrishna told Swami Vivekananda. Learn until the glory of the Lord shines through your face as it shone through the face of Shwet Ketu. Swamiji mentions Shwet Ketu. We have quite a few stories like story of Shwet Ketu and Satyakam and many such stories in which Guru gave him some basic instructions and left him. And he led an extremely contemplative life. Satyakam is most famous. He contemplated in silence. And when he returned, Guru said, your face is shining like that of a Brahmagyani. From whom did you learn this? He said, no, I never had any Guru other than you. Guru is pleased. Because ultimately all knowledge comes from within. No amount of internet searching, no amount of this Facebook and WhatsApp and all those social media platforms. I don't even know the names of all of them. These things can give you information. They will never give you knowledge. And because you don't have knowledge, you will never have wisdom. Because wisdom comes from within. Comes from within. And wisdom shines through your face. Try being spiritual. Your face will change. Try. Try being contemplative. I have seen hundreds, hundreds of young people who come from the society to become monks at Belur Math. And I've seen how within a few days, within a month or two, their whole appearance changes. Expressions, facial expressions change. And I myself have I won't say mentoring is not the right word, but many young people used to come to me over the years and they became monks. And I could see how they got transformed within months of becoming monks. Because what was information becomes knowledge. And knowledge translates into wisdom. And the wisdom shines through face. Information never shines through face, not even knowledge, wisdom. Wisdom is when it is yours. Guess against guess makes fight. So why we have so much of fight? Why some people are shedding blood around? Because it's guess against guess. Someone says that if you don't follow the words of my master, my prophet, will behead you. Why? You're guessing against guess. You are guessing that your religion is superior to others' religion. All the fight that we have in the world All the fight that we have is by the followers of the masters. And these followers, they have not seen truth. They only guessed. They continue to guess. And they fight only with people who are another bunch of guess makers. The fight is not between followers of different religions. The fight is between persons who indulge in guesswork. Guesswork versus guesswork. But talk of what you have seen, and no human heart can resist it. Always talk only what you have realized, and you will see the world will listen to you. Paul was converted against his will by realization. There's a very popular story of St. Paul. He was Saul, and in those days, it was fashionable to punish the Christians. And Saul was on way to Damascus when he had that vision of Christ who said, "Why do you want to persecute my children?" And Saul, who was a persecutor, changed overnight. Now, see, look, converted people have a tendency to talk like this. So I don't know for sure what exactly was the story, but this is what we have got, and so we have to go by it. The idea is there was some kind of conversion, and this conversion was based on realization which Saul had, and he became St. Paul. Because you find, like, for example, Buddhists are very good at it. Buddhists, they are very good at making stories, and they're really great story makers. And they even came up with Jatak Katha. And those stories of Jatak Katha, they are believed to be absolutely true by the Buddhists. So, whenever there was a conversion by some famous person like Ashok, they went on creating stories about Ashok. Ashok was so vicious. Ashok was a person with huge political insights. He knew that the empire that he has, he can protect only through this means. So the stories were built, and Ashok, Ashok basked in those glories. There was no problem with it. So much so that Ashoka had 100 brothers and their 99 had to be killed by Ashoka. All nonsense. Because you don't find any reference to this. You find all this only in Buddhistic traditions. This is the problem with the converts. Anyone who becomes a convert, he is painted in the darkest possible way. And to show, see how conversion has changed them. And Christians became very good at it when they started converting Aborigines and others. So, anyway, but in most conversions, particularly of those who are powerful or learned, some kind of realization has to be there. Unless there is some kind of realization, this cannot take place. So Swamiji was still talking about yoga, and he will continue to talk about yoga, but like a free flying bird. He goes into the idea world and gets grand ideas, grand spiritual ideas, and gives them to us. Thank you so much.